as we do every Monday, a 1 hour live study session for the CISSP. Just give a quick shout out to uh, Talawa Cyber as our partner at Pocket Prep for making this possible. So as we do, we'll do 30 questions. That should take us for an hour, and yeah, see how we do. We'll go over the explanations as we go through them. Make sure we get a good understanding. Maybe tag anything that we need to do some further studying on or reading on. But that's the whole point. We want to make sure we get all that ironed out um, now during our prep, so that way, come test day, we could get that congratulations email at the end. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen, get my setup done. Let me switch out my layout. Boom. All right. All right. Question one. So, of the following, which best describes the purpose of a business impact analysis? All right. So we're looking at alpha, identify critical systems and prioritize assets that are most critical to the business. Identify how attackers exploit vulnerabilities. No. Understand risks so that an organization can make compliant estimates. No. It's not Delta. Define the legal and regulatory requirements. It's looking like Alpha. Yeah. Yeah. Identify critical systems and prioritize those assets that are most critical to the business. So, yeah, that's going to be BIA. Yeah. Yeah. A BIA is used to identify critical systems and prioritize assets that are most critical to the business. The BIA also identifies organizational risks, which allows the business to understand the risk and security needed for a specific system. So, in addition, it assigns a priority and asset value to a system to help determine costs associated with implementing the additional controls. All right. All right, question two. All right, Acme Incorporated has a security requirement to ensure that access to its server room can be tracked and that the information recorded includes the name of the person who entered the room. A door lock that includes a door lock that includes what type of technology is best suited to meet this requirement? That's gonna be. I have to say that's gotta be the electronic keypad. Let me just look at this again. Yeah, it has a security requirement to ensure access to a server room can be tracked. And the information recorded includes the name of the person who entered the room. Actually, I'm looking at Bravo. Um, yeah, because electronic keypad, you're not going to be able to track who, specifically who it is that comes to the door. If they're trying to have that accountability of who's going in and out of the rooms, you may want to use a card reader because everyone's card reader is going to be unique. So then you better check the logs and see, okay, who entered the space at the so and so time when you're looking at the log. So I'm leaning more towards card reader. Yeah, I'll go card reader. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's a card reader's form of electronic access control lock that is unlocked using a badge or smart card associated with a specific person. Yep. So thereby supporting access by different people and reporting on specific people. Yeah. So again, yeah, you want to have that. If you, as this question, it wants to have that measure of accountability. Um, Even I'll say that non-repudiation, where you'll be able to track. Everyone has a unique smart card. Of course, to them, it's going to have their picture that matches up to them. And and folks who have a smart card, they'll use that card to log into their specific systems, to get in and out of different spaces that have those card readers. So um, yeah, made sense for that's why card reader made sense for this question. All right, which of the following is the international standard known as the Common Criteria from the International Standards Organization and that evaluates information technology product security? I believe this is Bravo. Yep. Yeah, the ISO 15408 is known as the Common Criteria for Information Technology Security. Um, it was developed as a standard for evaluating information technology products. ISO 15408 has 7 levels, as you see here. So it goes from 1 through 7. I'm not going to go through them all, but yeah, so 1 starts at functionally tested. If you look at 3, methodically tested and checked, and it continues to progress and add on more. As you look at 6, semi-formally verified, designed, and tested, and then 7, formally verified, designed, and tested. So I see Dwight. Dwight, good evening. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. I might be muted for another second. I gotta
Sure.
get bad time
No,
sorted
it's
out
all
over here, but I'm listening in.
no, it's all good. Just wanna welcome you for coming through. All right, I'll keep this pressing on. All right. So, of the following, which is a United States law that was the first to implement penalties against those who perpetuate, excuse me, perpetrate and spread viruses, worms, and other malicious software intended to harm computing systems? It's not Delta. It's not Alpha. Ugh, this those who perpetrate and spread viruses. Yeah, this should be Charlie. Yeah. Yeah, so Congress first enacted a computer crime law as part of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, or Triple CA, of 1984, and remains in force today with several amendments. So the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act amendment was enacted in 1986 and was carefully worded to only cover computer crimes that cross state boundaries to avoid infringing on states' rights. Right. All right, which of the following is not a valid database key? All right, so you have foreign key, primary key for sure. Oh boy, candidate key and record key. I'm not too sure about either one of these. Um, all right, I believe this is gonna be candidate key. I'm not sure I'm familiar with hearing candidate key before. Oh, it's record key. I hmm. Oh, so record key is a fabricated term. So candidate key that can be used to identify any record. Okay. Yeah, primary key and foreign key I knew. Yeah, primary key, unique value for each tuple in a table. Foreign key, that's a value that references the primary key of a tuple in a different table. I see Pocket Prep added some updates. I just noticed this. So in explanations, they have um, so you can go deeper, kind of really just pick apart more. If I guess if the explanation still doesn't help you, you can go a little deeper. Let's try this out. Okay, so they go. So they have a bot, AI bot for this. So tutor, it's called tutor. So yeah, I noticed a tutor at the bottom too. This is yeah, first time seeing this. Um, okay, well, I'm not gonna go too much further. I was just curious as to what that was, but okay, and I think that's cool. Be able to, 'cause a lot of times, honestly, I will check, um, you know, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever, like for certain questions where, I, whether right or wrong, but just the main thing is I was trying to understand and, you know, maybe throw a question in there just to get that better explanation. So to have this kind of baked in into the Pocket Prep platform, I think that's great. So yeah, I'll try this out. All right, let me close that for now. All right. Ultimately, who is accountable for the security of a company or organization? Oh yeah, it's not CISO, not Bravo. Yeah, it's gonna be senior management. Yeah, they hold the ultimate responsibility, senior management. Whenever you see questions like that, um, yeah, who's like ultimately responsible for the whole thing, not a particular section or department, but for the whole operation. Make sure read the questions very carefully because they will try to change it up a bit, and where maybe they focus on a particular department or whatever. So you want to make sure you're looking for the one that encapsulates the whole company or the whole organization, and that's going to be typically senior management or like CEO or something like that. Um, that's typically going to be the answer in those type of situations. All right, a penetration tester is instructed to conduct a penetration test, but will not be given any information about the company or network. The tester is fully authorized to use all standard tooling and techniques in the test. What type of testing does this best describe? That's yeah. If he's not given any information, that's going to be closed box or formerly black box testing. Yeah, yeah, formerly black testing. The penetration tester isn't given any prior knowledge of the network, little information to go with. Yeah, commonly referred to as the most realistic test, as it provides the same point of view as an outside attacker. All right, which of the following organizations establishes the standards standards for service organization control or SOC audits? I want to go with Alpha. Yeah, it's not Bravo. Public accountants. Um, it's not Charlie. It's not. It's not. I mean, this could be it, but I don't believe it's this though. I believe this is gonna be Alpha. Wow, certified public accountants.
Sorry, I should have jumped in on that one.
Yo, that threw me for a loop. I did not think that was. I thought that was a distraction choice there. Wow. I okay.
Yeah,
All right. So
a lot of these organizations offering your SOC 2 certifications and stuff are are CPA firms.
Okay. I did I did not know that. Okay. All right, so yeah, the AI CPA, American Institute for Certified Public Accountants, establishes the standards for the SOC audits. So these audits organize, evaluate, and report on organizations' internal controls according to the AI CPA's proprietary trust service principles. Standards for SOC audits are documented in the AI CPA publication SSAE 18, and that's a statement on standards for attestation engagements number 18. Okay, I stand corrected. All right, what are the statement of standards for attestation engagements 18 and international standards for assurance engagements 3402 commonly used for? I'm looking at Delta now. I'm gonna hold Delta in my back pocket. Proper auditing requirements. Mm, I don't think it's that. External and third party audits of companies. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Delta. Yep. Yep, the SSAE 18 and the International Standard for Attestation Engagements 3402 are SOC audits. So SSAE 18 is a national auditing system, while ISAE 3402 is a very similar system used internationally. So both are standards used by companies to audit other companies in their jurisdiction. All right, other following, what quantitative risk analysis term is used to define the estimated cost an organization will experience if a threat is realized for a particular asset? What quantitative is used to define the estimated cost of an organization?
That that's gonna be your exposure, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Because everything else is, Alvin and Charlie. I mean, those are uh, they're not asking for anything annual. Um, it's fine. Used to define the estimated cost of organization experience for thirds realized for a particular. Yeah, I believe this is Bravo. I believe this is exposure factor. Wow,
Ouch.
single loss expectancy. So the SLE is a monetary law. Because I'm thinking exposure factor is like yeah, it's I was thinking decimal, but yeah, yeah, exposure fire. So I see an example there. Yeah, EF for fire is 50%. The EF for 0.50. You turn it into, or yeah, change it to put it in decimal form. So you do the calculation. Yeah, to give an example there. So 100,000. So the asset value $100,000 by 0.50, and that's $50,000. So and that gives you the single loss expectancy. Okay. All right. What is not an example of a physical control for account management? All right. So Bravo, yes. Uh, uh, Charlie, yes. Secure areas, yes. Approval documentation for account creation. I mean, that's more administrative. Yeah. Yep. Administrative control. I mean, paperwork, administrative stuff. All right, which of the following is least likely to be considered when choosing a spot to place a wireless antenna when setting up the wireless network? Um, yeah, where you don't want to set it up at.
The wording is confusing. Least likely to interfere, is that what we're looking for?
No, they're saying like, yeah, which location you would least likely choose to set up your network? Like which spot would you would not be ideal or uh, like which area out of these choices here, which one wouldn't be the best location to set up a network, wireless network? I well, you want a central location is good. You want that. I'm looking at I'm looking at Bravo. Avoid windows. Mm, I don't think that should be a problem. The only thing I'm looking I guess concerned with is Delta, but I think Delta is.
That seems like a distractor to me.
I don't know if it's for I don't know if it affects wireless. I think that's more like I think it's like radio waves or something like that. I think that's where reflective material. Um,
Tinfoil hat.
yeah. Uh, yeah. I'm leaning towards Bravo for this. Let's see. Wow, who's Windows? When picking a spot to place an antenna, Windows should not have any bearing on the decision since they do not significantly affect signal strength. Windows could be a potential security concern, though, as someone can be in a parking lot capturing the signal and listening to the transmission. The question, though, does not point to this kind of security concern, and the other three answers can cause the network to not even work. I don't get this question because I thought they were looking for what would affect the signal, and it just says the Windows doesn't have any effect on it, but it's um they said if somebody could be in a parking lot, I, I don't know. They should have a better focus of what you're looking for this scenario because right now I'm thinking yeah, you don't want to have that you don't want to pick a location that's going to affect the performance of your wireless network, and that's why I chose solid barriers. um yeah, not a not a fan of this question, and even the explanation is a little clunky. All right. Of the following, which concept is the most essential in object oriented programming? I believe it's class. Most essential. Yeah. Yeah. Object oriented programming relies on a relationship between classes and objects. Objects inherit information from their assigned class. This allows programmers to be more efficient with their code. OOP code scales better and it's easier to modify. All right. Which of the following best describes why password reuse should be prevented? Bravo looks pretty good. I mean, all of these are, um, I'd say, valid choices. Now it's just a matter of which one's the strongest one. So it says increased chance of a successful birthday attack. I still feel like Bravo is the probably the strongest one out of this because yeah, if you're using like yeah old passwords and if it's yeah if it's already been exposed, it just makes it that much easier for an attacker to um, gain or regain access to your system if you're still using these old passwords that already have
To
been compromised.
to me, those 2 at the bottom kinda reference some type of encryption scenario.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm leaning towards Bravo. Yeah. Yeah, traditional reason passwords are changed is to reduce the likelihood that an exposed password is still in use. So frequently changing the user's passwords reduces the chances of that. Um, disallowing password reuse prevents a user from using a password that may have been previously exposed. Yes, when we talk about yeah, dictionary attack, yeah, requiring password. The previous idea of changing password every 30 days or so was utilized because it was thought that it would take a computer about 30 days to perform a successful dictionary attack. Birthday attacks are used to find two passwords that hash to the same value. So yeah, so as you're alluding to with that, Dwight. Yeah, so yeah, birthday attacks. Yeah, find two passwords that have the same hash. That way, a bad actor only has to find a password that hashes to the right value, not necessary that hashes to the right value, not necessarily the right value. Uh, rainbow table. Yeah, that's a table of pre-computed hashes for possible passwords. If the password that a user is using has been pre-computed, it will take seconds to find a value if a bad actor has captured the hash of a user's password. All right. A business incorporates a practice in which one employee conducts a weekly audit of all business transactions while another employee deposits the cash relating to these transactions at a local bank. This employee returns a deposit slip and stores it in a safe place for a supervisor to review later. What is the term given to this practice? This should be separation of duties. Yep. Yeah, separation of duties requires two or more people to play separate roles in the completion of a critical process. Two people serving separate functions at the same time within a holistic process can allow for auditing and accountability. Split knowledge, that's a security principle that divides the critical information or sensitive data among multiple individuals or entities to prevent unauthorized access or misuse. Each entity alone does not possess complete knowledge, thereby enhancing security. Oh, we're getting a lot of ISAE questions tonight. All right, so where is an international statement for attestation engagements 3402 typically used? Oh, bravo. Internationally outside of the United States. Yeah. We had a version of this question earlier, but yeah, that for international use. All right. What is one way software-defined networking and software-defined security could most likely reduce monetary costs for a company over time? I'm looking at Delta. Companies could pay for a license for software, then virtualize it over the years. I, yeah, I don't believe Charlie is true. I don't believe Bravo is true.
I
Always
was looking
free.
at alpha.
Some forms will allow for elastic resource capabilities. Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, I think I like that more than Delta. Because Delta seems a little backhanded too. um, yeah, because yeah, if you're using elastic resources then or capabilities, then it helps to save money. So then, if you're reaching a, let's say you reach a peak, you're using more resources, then you may pay a little more, but then things are slow, then your prices, like what you owe, will be cheaper, because due to like lower activity. So actually, I like Alpha better here. Yep. Yeah, many software-defined networking platforms allow for the elasticity of resources between containers or virtual machines. This technique allows a machine to give and take resources as needed, so that other machines on the platform can utilize those resources. Some programs may also refer to this as ballooning or resources. So let's see what they say about. Uh, yeah, so companies could spend money on a few high-end computers, then provision remote thin clients across a workplace. Despite this, companies should be careful not to virtualize any licensed software beyond the allowance. Right? Yeah, that could lead to legal troubles or revocation of a license at the most inconvenient time. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. It seemed a little backhanded to do it that way with Delta. So yeah, that makes sense. All right, which of the following best represents a social engineering attack? Well, Bravo is tailgating. It looks like that's gonna be Charlie. Let me check the other. Spoofing a system. mm, System's IP address. Uh, no, yeah, yeah, this is gonna be Charlie, social engineering. So yeah, so you may talk to like an employee, tell them, yeah, I work for so and so company, some fake company, so that way you can gain access and do your dirt. Yeah, yeah, social engineering. Yeah, that's gonna involve tricking a person into divulging information or granting the attacker access to a system. This includes stealing credentials and tricking someone into granting a built-in access. Or when discussing session initiation protocol or SIP, or challenge a handshake authentication protocol CHAP, what best describes the role of the nonce? I believe this is alpha. Who's need chat? Prevents protects against. Yeah, I believe this is alpha. Yeah. Yeah, a nonce number used once is a random number or value generated by the authentication server. So when a client requests to authenticate, the server will reply with a nonce. This is often called the challenge. The client will combine the nonce with a predefined password and use a hashing algorithm to generate a response. The server will use the same nonce and predefined passwords to create a hash. If the hash generated by the client and server match, the server will authenticate the client. Each nonce can only be used once and helps prevent replay attacks. Daisy has been working with the business continuity teams to identify potential threats that have not been addressed appropriately or at all by the corporation. They have just identified a threat that has a low likelihood of occurrence and a low impact score. What would be the best risk response to this threat? Uh, so yeah, identify a threat that has a low likelihood of occurrence and a low impact. You probably just accept that. You're not gonna avoid it. Transfer, no. That'll be in the case if you're acquiring insurance. That's where you transfer the risk. But they're not talking about that here. Um, and reduction, you wouldn't reduce it because it's already low. Like if it was high, then you would take steps you take some mitigation steps to reduce it to bring it down. But since it's already low, you're not gonna bring it down any lower. So at this point, you just accept it because it's a low likelihood, and it's gonna have a low impact. So even if something does happen, if it does come to fruition, it's not gonna hurt you. So yeah, so when a threat is not likely to be realized and will have little impact, an organization should document and accept the risk. Yeah, risk acceptance does not mean choosing to ignore the risk, but concluding that doing something about the risk is more costly than the risk itself. Yeah, and risk avoidance is something you should really never do. You should never avoid it. Yeah, it's not used to address a risky activity or stop one when it's identified. All right. When discussing the central processing unit architecture, what best describes the role of a register? It's not alpha. We'll come back to Bravo. A list of addressable random access memory. No. Performs performs arithmetic and bitwise operations. I don't believe it does that. Um, yeah, I believe. Yeah, this is gonna be Bravo. Yeah, yeah. Register a temporary storage location located on the CPU. Used to store instruction sets. When a CPU executes an instruction set, it loads it from the register, and that's where you can make changes to your register. It's also you want to make sure you know what you're doing because you could really do some damage to your CPU if you make some significant changes and you're not aware of like what you're doing or have the ability to kind of roll it back. Because again, you could um, take your PC to a state that it's not be able to recover from. So yeah, you wanna that's not something you necessarily want to play around with. All right. Post Office Protocol version 3 or POP3 is typically run on which TCP port? That's going to be Delta because 25, that's SMTP, 23 is Telnet, 123 is NTP. That's your network time protocol. Yeah, Delta is going to be 110. Yeah, I've shared this before within our study group on Discord. And again, if you want to join the community, please reach out. Follow Talo Cyber here on LinkedIn and also YouTube. Should have links there, but also you can reach out to me and I'll make sure I get you squared away. But this actually came up in conversations within the community as we go over this. You know, when taking the CISSP, um, yes, you hear that it's uh, maybe more managerial. if you will, or you always hear it talk about, think like CEO, but there's still technical elements to this. So you don't want to ignore that or ignore your studies when it comes to that. Um, Definitely, I see a lot of questions like this or relate to this where yeah, you need to definitely need to know your ports, at least the basics. So yeah, when it comes like this, I mean, this question comes up, I immediately knew, all right, boom. I I quickly eliminated Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie because I already knew what those were. But yeah, it definitely helps to make sure that you know your ports, or at least the commonly used ports. So when you encounter questions like this, which you will see, you may see a few. Not gonna say it's gonna be a ton of them. Like it's not a Network Plus exam, but you still want to make sure you have that knowledge going in because yeah, you will be um, tested on that. So, and it could end up being one of your more easier questions to get some points. So yeah, so you don't want to brick any layups when it comes to that. So, all right, which government data classification label requires the most security and is considered the highest level? That's top secret. Yeah, top secret applies to the information whose unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause exceptionally grave damage to national security. It's the highest level of classification used by the government. Uh, yeah, secret and confidential, those are not used together. Secret labels apply to information whose unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause severe damage to national security. So it's just one step lower than top secret. And a confidential label is used in commercial environments, not by the government. The classified label applies to any data that has been assigned to a classification label. So the all caps classified is not significant in the use of the label. All right, using the Open Systems Interconnection or OSI model, which layer defines the type of media to be used? That's going to be physical, and that's going to be layer one. So layer three, that's our network. Um, Layer six, that's going to be
Presentation.
yeah, presentation. Thank you. And then layer five, what is that? Session. Yeah, layer five is session. Yeah, layer one is going to be physical. Yeah, yeah, physical layer. It provides defines the type of media going to be used. And defines the representation of data on the mediums. Physical layers where messages are transferred to electrical impulses. Yeah. Uh, I know a couple folks have different mnemonics when it to help remember the OSI model. The one that I've been accustomed to was, please do not throw sausage pizza away. So yeah, you got physical, data link, um, network for layer three. Please do not throw transport, and then session, presentation, and then application. So yeah, yeah, I've heard a couple other different iterations of it, but like whatever works, whatever helps you. It's I don't think there's really any right or wrong. It's just, as long as you got the right order, of course, it's still getting you to remember those levels, those layers. And this is another example of why, again, kind of like we just had earlier with regarding knowing the different ports. Again, here's an example of knowing that we want to know the OSI model. So um, yeah, it's not gonna go maybe in depth like maybe if you would if you've taken more of a focus exam like Net Plus or maybe even CCNA. It's not going to in the weeds like that, but again, you still want to have that knowledge. And to me, it's really just that's foundational knowledge when it comes to that. So you just want to make sure you have that brushed up. All right, which security model would you use to prevent the movement of information from one classification to another? Prevent the movement of information. Oh, I'm looking. I'm looking at from one classification to another. I don't think it's alpha. I was looking at Charlie, but I'm not sure. I think it's between Bravo and Delta. Prevent the movement of information from one classification to another. So I know Bella Padula that puts labels. Um, that puts labels on I guess media or assets. State machine. I don't. Oh, Brewer and Nash. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go with Delta, but I'm not very confident with this. It was information flow. Golly. What is it? What is Brewer Nash? Brewer Nash is incorrect because it dynamically changes access controls to protect against conflicts of interest. Brewer Nash is conflict of interest. Yes. Um, um, Information flow prevents the movement of information from one classification to another. Bella Padula and Bieber are both information flow models. Yeah, and that's why I thought I brought up Bella Padula because um, I didn't quite make that correlation, of course, that it was specifically an information flow model, but I was just kind of going through those different models. Yeah, Bieber is integrity. Um, yeah, the model. So this model controls the flow of information from high security to low security classifications. They use to avoid unauthorized access to data or compromises to data integrity. All right, what is the default access control model on Windows systems? That's Delta. But let me slow down and read it. But I believe this is Delta. It's not discretionary. Yeah, it's not Bravo. No. Yeah, that should be Delta. What? Wow. Discretionary. What am I thinking of? So mandatory access control uses many attributes to determine access. The system will view the classification label on the data and clearance on the user's account before it matches to a corporate policy that has been programmed with. The system then determines the appropriate level of access granted a user, which could be no access. Common labels are top secret, secret, and confidential. So a system that employs discretionary access allows the owner to control and define access to that object. All objects have owners, and access control is based on the discretion of the or decision of the owner. Most operating systems, including Windows, use DAC by default. Uh, Windows systems that owners can adjust file permissions by right-clicking the file and selecting the security. Yeah, damn. I mean I understand that, but I thought mandatory access control was the default. But okay. I hate missing those. Okay. All right. Freya works for a large multinational corporation that has begun implementing job rotation in its network and division. There are many benefits that can be achieved from this tool. Which of the following are primary security benefits of job rotation? Let me- Okay. What is okay? Primary security benefits of job rotation. All right, let me go through all these. So three, four, and five reduces fraud, enables cross training, detects split knowledge. I like three and four, but I don't know about five. One, two, and three improves employee relationships. No, that's not the primary security benefit for job rotation. So I would eliminate anything with one. So I'm gonna look at Delta now. So two, three, and four provides peer review, reduces fraud, enables cross training. I think this is it. Yeah. Yeah, purpose of job rotation is to act as a deterrent and a detection tool. The primary benefits of job rotation. I'm not going to read it again, but yeah, as we mentioned here, yeah, for two, three, and four, yeah, peer review reduces fraud and enables cross training. Yeah, a lot of these you really got to pay attention to what they're asking you. Um, yeah, when I say primary security benefit, improving employee relationship is not going to be a primary security benefit. It may be are nice to have, but that is not a primary security benefit. So when I saw that made it easy for me to just eliminate Bravo and Charlie. Anything that had choice one, I'll just go ahead and eliminate that. So I eliminated Bravo and Charlie right off the bat. I took a look at Alpha, but I didn't like five. So then I looked at Delta, and that made the most sense. So that's what I went with, and that's the right answer. All right, other following options. Which best estimates the potential loss an asset may suffer from a specific threat? I kind of wish they would give a little more with the question. Like, is it annually or is it just a one time? All right, it's not gonna be an asset value. Yeah, I think this is gonna be Charlie. It's not threat modeling. Um, yeah, we're not doing a threat evaluation. We're talking about the loss uh, an asset may have. Yeah, this is gonna be Charlie. Yeah, ALE measures exactly the 1 year financial loss an asset may suffer from from a specifically identified threat. Yeah, the formula is ALE equals SLE times ARO or the annualized rate of occurrence, and that's used to determine risk and insurance requirements based on the potential for failure. All right. Mara is planning a security test for a new server that was recently put into production. She's evaluating all the factors that might affect how the system is vulnerable or open to attack. Of the following, what is the least significant factor for Mara to consider? All right. Yeah, she did. So she's planning a security test for a new server. Just got put into production. She's evaluating everything, how it works. Um, so what's the least significant factor for her to consider? So alpha is you definitely want to consider that. Bravo, you want to consider that. Charlie, yes. Yeah, Bravo, Delta, Delta would probably be the least to consider here out of these choices. Availability of testing resources. I don't think that's going to matter, or it's not going to have a direct impact when it comes to determining if how vulnerable that system is, or open to attack. Um, yeah, you want to consider uptime. You want to consider the criticality of the system, and also the classification of what's being stored on the system. So yeah, this should be Delta. Whoa, guess not. Let's see why. All right, so the lowest on the list of concerns out of these four options is the uptime of the system. This is because Mara is planning and looking for vulnerabilities at the moment. I I I looked at it from the standpoint of um, if if a system is down too long, then you start looking at like RTO, or or MTD, maximum tolerable downtime. Uh, that's where my mind went with that, and that's why I figured uptime was important. Um, because if an attacker does successfully compromise the network or that particular system, how much time do I have before my data is being affected? How much time can I withstand, or take before it starts seeing real damage to the network? So mm, I get it. I guess I'm not sure I like this question, because I do think uptime is important. I still think Charlie is important. Mm. I might have to come back to that. Kind of dig
They
deeper on
kind of
that one.
they
Yeah,
kind of
good,
get you
good.
with the least significant.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yeah. Floor is yours.
No, I was just saying they kind of get you with the least significant. It's not that it's not important. It's just all that other stuff kind of outweighs it.
No, no, I get that. I don't know. Like I still think that's all right. Let me read what it says about the testing resources. Then security tests are conducted to verify that a control reduces risk to an acceptable level. These tests include automated scans, tool assisted penetration tests, and manual attempts to undermine security. They should take place regularly. Attention paid to each of the critical security controls. Uh, okay. Yeah. Hmm. All right. Yeah, I'm still kind of. I don't feel great about that one, but yeah, I'll have to dig a little deeper on that one after this. All right, last one for tonight. Yeah, ensuring that subjects can only access objects through the use of an application is referred to as which of the following?
This is going to be alpha.
Access control. I was looking at Bravo. Access control triple. I'm not familiar with that one. Current subjects can only access objects through the use of an application referred to as which of the following? Can only access objects through the use of an application. Yeah, well, as I read that again, I don't think it's Bravo. Yeah, because Charlie has to do, yeah, there's more information flow and that deals specifically with integrity. Star property has to do with one of those information models, like no read up or read up and no read down or something like that. But yeah, Charlie or Delta doesn't. I don't think that applies here. I'm just not familiar with access control triple. I don't know what that means.
I don't know it well enough to explain it, but it's along the lines of like some kind of separation between the subject and the object, and uh,
I mean, that has to be the closest, the best one because yeah, Bravo. As I reread this, I don't think Bravo applies to this, and I don't think Charlie or Delta does either. So yeah, what is that? So the Clark Wilson model focuses on data integrity, relies on the separation of duties and separation of subjects from objects. Subjects access and modify objects indirectly through an interface or program. This is known as the access triple. Okay, so this is through Clark Wilson and is made up of the subject program object. Clark Wilson model defines constrained data items or CDI and integrity verification procedures and confirms transformation procedures. Yeah, TCB, that's the totality of protection mechanisms within a computer. Yeah, that's why I said, yeah, TCB doesn't make sense for this. Yeah, BIBA, that's an integrity model. Um, Star property is the right property within the Bell LaPadula model that states that a subject can write at their own clearance level or above, but not to a lower level. And if the subject can write to a lower level, it is possible that sensitive data could leak out. All right. What is this? All right. I didn't really use it today, so okay. Well, I mean, it's a pass. It's a certification. Uh, Definitely felt like a couple bumps along the way with this one, but yeah, still came away with the win. There's a couple of these you need to just definitely want to go over. Yeah, record key. Yeah, that's not a valid database key. Yeah, I learned something with this because when I looked at this choice, I thought that was a weird choice. I was like, what is CPA doing here? But I I did not know that. So at least I guess I haven't encountered that type of question enough for it to really stick in my head. Um, yeah, just single loss expectancy. I didn't like the way this question was, but this was avoid windows because even the explanation I thought was kind of weird. I feel like they're asking two different things um, with the question and then what the explanation they gave. Yeah, information flow, prevent from one classification to another. That's the information flow model. Yeah, default access for Windows systems. Yeah, that's going to be DAC. I was so sure it was Mac, but it does make sense. I do understand why it's discretionary now. Um, yeah, this one I guess I have beef with this one too. Um, yeah, because yeah, I thought uptime would have more importance here, but guess not. All right, well, good work, Device. Definitely appreciate you coming through, folks watching. and you're just catching up on YouTube, maybe doing a replay. We'll be doing this again, but on Wednesday. But we'll do this within the our Discord community, the command line community on Discord. So again, if you want to invite, please reach out or follow any of our socials. We're on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, of course, LinkedIn, and then again, you could always, like I said, just reach out to me if you need a fresh invite link. But yeah, but that's all. And thank you for coming through, and we'll see you again next week. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Thank you.